Well, this rain just won't go away. And if you're not scraping mud out of your house, you're likely dealing with mould of epic proportions up and down the east coast of Australia. That's if you're still lucky enough to be in your own house. It's been an unrelenting summer and now autumn, with more rain forecast for later this week as the clean-up and recovery continues. The Prime Minister's been accused of playing games with money intended for flood victims. Have a listen to outgoing New South Wales Liberal MP Catherine Cusack on RN Breakfast saying that Scott Morrison has lost her vote.
It's completely unacceptable when you inflict it on innocent flood victims and start playing games with funding for those victims who urgently need that money to be released. The first thing that he's done is had a political appointment in Shane Stone as head of the National Resilience and Recovery Agency. That is actually how he's empowered himself to do this.
Shane Stone, welcome to RN Drive. Were you appointed to this role to do the bidding of the Prime Minister?
I've been in this role for over 3 years. I've handled over 100 disaster-related events. So I totally reject what Catherine Cusack has had to say.
You were Scott Morrison's pick for the job and the first person to hold it. Was this purely a political appointment?
Well, I was Chief Minister 25 years ago, Andy. What are you telling me? I can't take anything in between? I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, Catherine...
Judge me. I'll refute everything that Catherine Cusack said because it was false. It was untrue. I mean, this was the fastest rollout of Commonwealth funding in a disaster event in our history. Within 24 hours, we had commenced the rollout, and it now stands at $1.25 billion in people's pockets. And that's the Commonwealth side of the equation. There are three parts to this. There's the Commonwealth contribution, then there's the DRFA, which is both Commonwealth and state, generally on a shared basis, and then there are the states who do their own thing. But I will not have Catherine Cusack make the claim that we weren't responding. $1.25 billion out the door, starting within the first 24 hours. Now, that's indisputable fact, and she is wrong, and she causes great harm when she goes out and makes those statements.
It does seem that more and more Liberal Party members are willing to put their necks out and label Prime Minister Morrison a bully. Why do you think you've been lumped together with him in this way?
Well, Andy, I'm 72 years old, and you've got to work really hard at insulting me, but I've known Scott Morrison for over 30 years, and when it goes to character, as I've said publicly, I've always found him to be an authentic individual, a very good father, husband, a man of faith. Not my sort of faith. I'm not on the Pentecostal journey. But I just think people are trying to square up. And it sickens me to see this sort of behaviour by people who've done really well out of their own political party and behave like this on the way out.
So are you saying that he's a victim in this and that those people calling him a bully are self-motivated and politically motivated?
I think they're trying to settle a score. But look, I've come onto your program to talk about the flood effort, and that's what I want to talk about.
Sure, but it's my job to put these claims to you, and, you know, we can explore the impact on the flood community, but, Catherine Cusack accused the Prime Minister of playing games with money, taxpayer funds intended for flood victims, and bullying the New South Wales government. You categorically deny that.
Absolutely untrue. $1.25 billion has gone out in the Australian government disaster relief payments and also disaster recovery allowances.
Okay.
Now, that's a massive amount of money, and it is in people's pockets.
Okay, let's move on. Flood-impacted communities in northern New South Wales have been forced to beg for help this month. Dominic Perrottet has been visiting the region these past 2 days. He's offering $20,000 grants to people who are uninsured to help them repair their homes. Why did the Commonwealth reject a request to pay half of this scheme?
The states always put in a request on a range of programs, and the Commonwealth will always assess what they think that they would lend their support to. What you're not telling is the whole story. For example, there is a program to look at water diversion and flood mitigation in the top of the river, and the Commonwealth's committed $10 million to that, together with $150 million to try and deal with the flooding many kilometres downstream. Now, no one talks about that. So, you talk about Why haven't they contributed the $20,000? Our role in the National Recovery and Resilience Agency is to deal with issues of resilience and preparation, and that's exactly what we're doing.
The government has committed $285 million for a new temporary housing support package, but what happens to people who've lost their homes entirely? Will this be used to purchase or build them new homes?
Well, under the DRFA, the way it works, the states put in the request and then they are subsequently reimbursed once we say, yes, that is a good program, and away they go. But these programs are in the hands of the state. And I think the question you really should be asking is, what has the state done in terms of getting that funding out? What guidelines have they set for the survivors and the victims of the flood to make sure that they get every opportunity to have a hand up? Everyone's got a role to play in this. But, there is a proper impact assessment done in relation to who gets what. It has to be. The Australian taxpayer demands that we don't just throw money around, but we do assess people based on merit and need. I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
If you just tuned in, the Coordinator General of the National Recovery and Resilience Agency, Shane Stone, is here on RN Drive with Andy Park. Lismore MP Janelle Saffin has called for the creation of a reconstruction commission or authority. But isn't that technically your remit? Do we need another agency to help rebuild these communities?
Look, you've got Resilience New South Wales. I mean, I've known Janelle from way back, and she called for a reduction in red tape. I can't find anyone to give me an example of where anyone is being obstructed by this so-called red tape. I admire and respect Janelle, but do you really want another bureaucracy? Well, I mean, I thought Resilience New South Wales, that was their responsibility.
Well, again, to quote Janelle Saffin, she says, we just need one body sitting there saying we're doing this. Have you said this to the people of Lismore and Ballina, and are you in it for the long haul?
Well, Resilience New South Wales is doing exactly that. I mean, they're in the very capable hands of Commissioner Fitzsimmons, of course, who looked after the fire issues. You couldn't get anyone better. And he's been there from day one, and people should give him a go to let him get on with his job. I mean, you cannot fix overnight the devastation that has occurred. You only have to go to Lismore to see for yourself how bad it is.
Shane, last month you made some comments about people who choose to live, quote, among the gum trees, to the effect that they should expect to be flooded or burnt out. You've had some time to probably reflect on those words and perhaps how they were received. Do you regret those comments now?
Look, I'm not dwelling on any of that. I'm concentrating on supporting survivors, the people who need our help now. There will be a broader conversation in time. There is no doubt about that. In fact, it's occurring. I mean, I go to different forums and people want to talk about it. And they will continue to talk about it. Whether they do anything about it, of course, another matter.
So you're saying this sort of unlivability question is being raised up in the forums that you attend in the flood-affected areas in northern New South Wales?
Well, I've got news for you. They've been raised for years, and we talk endlessly about these things. But at the moment, our preoccupation is helping the survivors, making sure that they're getting the money. And as I said, this rollout by the Commonwealth was the fastest in the Commonwealth history. I remind your listeners, back in 2011 when the floods occurred, the federal government of the day took 5, 6, 7 months to actually roll out the assistance. We've just got better at it as time has gone by.
Yet more torrential rain has been forecast along the eastern seaboard later this week, mainly around Sydney and the south coast, but also further north. What's your message to communities who've already been flooded twice in as many months and are really at the end of their tether here?
Well, they are at the end of their tether. I mean, it breaks my heart to see the way that people are trying to put their lives back together. I experienced all this in North Queensland with the monsoonal event up there in 2019. All you can do is rally around, support people as best you can, make sure they're able to put food on the table. And people say to me, what does success look like for the National Recovery and Resilience Agency? And I say, it is when you bring hope to people that there is a tomorrow.
Shane Stone, thanks for your time.
Delighted to talk to you this evening. Thank you.